Hey guys, welcome to season 2 of Work Hard, Live Soft, where I am going to show you how to build a business that can allow you to live the life that you love. You are about to listen to episode 10, what to expect when you are transitioning into entrepreneurship. So if you are a new entrepreneur in 2024, I'm going to tell you everything I've learned in the past 15 years of growing my own business. I'll see you there. Hey guys, welcome to season 2 of the Work Hard, Live Soft podcast. I am so excited for this season. So on season 1, I focused heavily on soft living and what that looked like. I talked a lot about systems. And for this season, I'm going to talk about what it looks like to be a CEO. So for today's episode, we're going to talk about entrepreneurship, what it looks like to transition into entrepreneurship, especially in 2024. And what I'm going to cover is the 10 things that the gurus didn't warn you about. And the reason I'm excited to talk about this episode is because when you hear messaging from business coaches, you often hear about making a lot of money and having the freedom and setting up your funnels and the automations and all of that. You hear the dream life story that is attached to entrepreneurship. And yes, I can definitely advocate for the fact that being an entrepreneur allows me to have freedom. It allows me to be more flexible with my money, but it didn't always start like that. When I first started, I didn't have money. I was not making six figures. And in fact, it took me 7 years, or maybe even a little bit more. I think it actually took me 8 or 9 years to hit my first 6 figures. So if you were thinking that in your first year of entrepreneurship, you were going to knock it out the park with your messaging, you're going to knock it out the park with your processes and systems and your automations, and you're going to be living this laptop lifestyle, I just want to bring you down to reality. And it's not about being pessimistic. It's just about preparing you for the amount of work that you actually need to do. And so you're not going to often hear a lot of business coaches on the marketing side talk about the amount of work that you need to do, because when it comes to messaging, you got to sell the dream. You got to sell people what they want and what they want to do, but not what they need to do. And listen, I'm guilty of it too. I sell the dream because I do believe in it and I live it, and I've seen my clients living it, but I do want to talk about what it realistically looks like. And so the first thing, I took some notes here. I wrote them all down. I thought about this very diligently, but the first thing that they didn't warn you about is that being a successful entrepreneur requires you to have to work way harder than you anticipated. And oftentimes we think, okay, if I leave my 9 to 5, I don't have to work these 8-hour days. I don't need to work 40 hours a week. But what you will find is that you're probably going to end up working about 80 hours a week. I remember when I first started and I would be in the computer lab for 8 hours, but then go home and then put in another 8 hours studying on YouTube, practicing my designs, emailing clients back and forth. And so I really recommend that when you go into entrepreneurship, it's something that you can be committed to. It's something that you are driven to do, something that you're even passionate about, because the passion is what's going to fuel you to work those long hours. And you also have to consider that when you're running your own business, you are everybody on your team. So unless you're starting out with funding and you're able to hire a VA and hire a graphic designer and hire a copywriter and hire all of these people, you are filling in multiple roles. So if you are filling in multiple roles who are even just working part-time, you're likely going to be working a minimum of 80 hours per week because you're working 2, 3, 4, 5 jobs in your business. So I just really want to encourage you to be mindful of the capacity that it requires to build a successful business. So many times when people enroll in my programs, they ask me, how many hours per week should I be investing inside of the program? And so I typically say 4 hours minimum. And that is simply just to learn what you need to learn. So I say about an hour going through one of the modules, an hour showing up to the Q&A call, and 2 full hours actually implementing the homework assignment. So you need to think about what you need to learn. And then you also need to think about what you need to ask your coach, or brainstorming and processing the information. And then also consider, I need to work a minimum of 2 hours per week. And you also want to test the results of the work that you are doing. So you could be putting in 2 hours of work, in terms of creating your graphics or writing the copy. But if you're not getting the results you want, that is a sign to you that you need to be putting in more work. You need to be testing the work that you're doing, and really just figuring out the right strategy for your business. And that takes time. So your first year is going to be a lot of trial and error. The second thing that the gurus didn't warn you about is that the very first people to support you will be strangers. The very first people to support you will not be the people who were supporting you when you were in corporate, will not be the people who were supporting you when you were shrinking, will not be the people who were supporting you when you were comfortable. And there's a couple reasons for that. Typically, when you tend to grow, it can make the other people around you project their own limitations onto you. I know for me and my story, when I wanted to go into entrepreneurship and work for myself and drop out of college, my parents, who are the two closest people to me in my life, they did not support that. And I can understand that because of what they knew at the time. You know, I'm first generation American, and my parents came to this country with an expectation to start their family and have kids that would go to a good university and get a good degree and just do really well. And so it was really nerve-wracking not having the people closest to me supporting me. One thing that you need to understand is that other people's approval for your life and your vision is not a prerequisite to you being obedient to your calling. Not everybody is going to understand why you're doing what you're doing because God gave the vision to you. And so you are responsible for honing in on that vision, for doing the work, and for having the faith. So when the people closest to you are doubting you, it's important that the voice that you hear the loudest is God's voice and your own intuition. So that was a really big lesson for me because I felt like I stayed in college versus pursuing my business full time years after when I really should have dropped out because I was so nervous to disappoint my parents. And it was like I was worshiping their approval more than I was honoring what my intuition was telling me, more than honoring what God was telling me that I needed to do. So just be really mindful of when you're making decisions for your life, you need to ask yourself, is this decision based on people pleasing? Is this decision based on I want other people to approve of what I'm doing? Or is this decision in alignment with the direction I know I need to be going with my life and my business? And then before I even go on to the third thing, what you need to understand is that your very first customers and clients will not be your friends and family. So it's incredibly important that you do not take it personally when they are not the first ones buying. As an entrepreneur, as a business owner, it is your responsibility to find your first set of clients and customers. It's your responsibility to define who your target market is, who would want to buy your products, who would want to buy your services, who is your ideal target client. What problems are they dealing with? What are some of the solutions that they are searching for? You have to do that market research. You're not going to be able to start, grow, or sustain a successful company simply relying on your internal network just because they love you. So make sure that you're not taking things personally when your friends and family don't buy from you. The third thing that the business gurus didn't warn you about is that dealing with people can be very challenging. It doesn't matter how much of a people person you are, okay? Dealing with people can be very challenging, whether you're dealing with your clients or you end up building a team and you end up dealing with them. And as somebody who loves people and who just has a heart for people, it can be challenging just dealing with so many different personalities. And again, when it comes to dealing with people, you're dealing with people who are working on their own healing. You're dealing with people who have their own perspectives, and you're dealing with people who have their own way of projecting their own insecurities or limitations onto you. And so when you are working with your clients, it is really important for you to have a level of grace of what they are going through. I've been through a lot of situations. You guys might have heard on the last episode of season 1 where I talked about just some of the most traumatic parts of entrepreneurship has been disappointing clients or clients disappointing me. And so just really understanding that even when you have the best of clients, every once in a while, you're going to deal with some clients that are deemed as a headache, or you're going to be dealing with some level of criticism. And so it's so important that you feel prepared for this because since somebody didn't warn me about how it could feel being disappointed by clients or disappointed by criticism, when I was finally met with that, it really devastated me. And so I wish that was something that I would have prepared for and realized that it wasn't something that I needed to take personally, but something that I just needed to figure out, how do I navigate this responsibly? So you want to learn how to be a leader to your clients, and you want to learn how to be a leader to your team. And some of the best ways to avoid a level of disappointment when working with your clients and working with your team is to just level set expectations up front. I find that things typically go left in relationships when expectations aren't met, and oftentimes expectations aren't met because expectations aren't set. So if you get clear on those expectations up front, you set them and both parties agree, you can alleviate the chances of creating disappointment and challenges in your relationships in business. So the fourth thing that the gurus didn't warn you about is that you need money to start your business. And typically when you hear anybody saying that you do need to make an investment in yourselves, they're going to tell you that from the perspective of making the investment in yourself through their products and services. So you'll hear photographers say that you need to invest in yourself through photography. You'll hear designers say that you need to invest in yourself through a rebrand. And you'll hear business coaches saying that you need to invest in yourself through their programs. And they're not necessarily wrong, but then you'll also see another side of the spectrum that's like, you don't have to spend a lot of money in order to start your business. I remember seeing a lot of content when I was first starting my business around how to start your business for $100 or how to start your business for $1,000. And what's true was that you can start your business for a little bit of money, but you cannot grow your business for a little bit of money. There are going to be expenses, and it is really important that you start to understand the expenses that come along with starting and growing your business. Some of those expenses are going to be education. You want to be able to close that knowledge gap. And when you invest in education, consulting, coaching, and close that knowledge gap, it allows you to save time. So you have to decide, do I have more time or do I have more money? So you want to invest in education, but then you also want to invest in support, whether it is human resources or it's technology. So you might want to hire a VA to help you with the administrative task, or somebody to help you with the graphics. Anything that's slowing you down from making more money in your business, anything that's slowing you down from marketing yourself and generating sales, you want to either get support with it, but through education, or support with it by having somebody else do it. And then you also want to start looking into what type of software do you need to be able to run your business? What type of software do you need to help your business run more smoothly, more efficiently, and help you make more money? So you definitely want to have a realistic mindset of, what do I need to invest right now in my business, and what will my recurring expenses be? The fifth thing that the gurus didn't warn you about is that you will want to quit, and that is okay. And when you first start out, listen, you think you want to do this forever, and you may want to do this forever. When I first started 15 years ago, I'm like, I'm going to do this forever. Now, every single day, I'm like, what is the fastest path to retirement? And I ask that question even still loving what I do. But you got to be very mindful that you are building something so you have a level of freedom. And at some point you will need to ask yourself, what is my end game? What does freedom truly look like for me? And sometimes we only think about freedom in terms of how many hours we work. But now I'm thinking of freedom in, what is my quickest path to never opening up my laptop and Instagram ever again? And again, it's not to say that I don't love what I do. It's just that I want what I do to always be optional. To me, that is true freedom. That is true wealth. When you have the option to never, ever do it, when you have as many options as possible. And so when you hit a wall in your business and you feel like quitting, that's not a sign that you should quit. It's just a sign that you need to change things around. You either need to change your perspective of what is going on, or you need to change how your business is running. You might need to change how much money you're making. You might need to change the type of clients that you're working with. You might need to change the level of support that you are getting. But you're going to run into these problems because we all face challenges in our business, and you just don't see it a lot online because, we all have to flex online and make it seem like our businesses are doing so well, and we just post our highlight reel. But I promise you that 1 in every 3 people that you see posting about having great success in their business, it is true. It can be true that they are having success, but they have more days than you know, understand, or realize where they just want to throw it all away, where they are struggling, where they have no idea what they are doing. So you will have days where you want to quit, and you will have a lot of days where you feel like you don't know what you're doing. And that does not mean that you're not equipped for this. It just means that you are growing. Every single time I'm ready to quit, or every single time that I feel doubt in myself, it's because I'm evolving, and I've never been this person before. I've never had this level of elevation before. And so it can make you feel nervous. It can make you feel imposter syndrome. So just be mindful that wanting to quit is not a sign to quit. So the sixth thing that they did not warn you about is what I kind of just talked about. You're going to face more imposter syndrome than you ever have in your entire life, because you are doing something you have never done before. And this is when the enemy starts to trick you. This is when your mind starts to play games with you and saying, who are you to say that you are an expert? Who are you to market yourself and ask for money? Who are you to dream about being a 6-figure earner or a 7-figure earner? And so y'all know that I love mindset. Y'all know that I love good affirmations, that I love writing down my prayers, because I know how the mind can play tricks on you when you are at a crossroads of shrinking or elevating. And so as you are growing your business, it is really important that you have these foundational declarations, prayers, and affirmations where you can go back and say, I am equipped. God did call me to this. I am worthy of doing this. I am equipped and empowered to serve other people. I do deserve to make money. I do deserve to make $250,000. I do deserve to make $1 million. When you are faced with this imposter syndrome, you have to remind yourself of who you are. There's twofold when it comes to imposter syndrome. There's the part of you that is doubting the actual skill and ability that you already have. And then there's another part of you that is doubting the lack of skills and the lack of abilities that you already have. And if you take an honest look and you're saying, listen, I might need to take an extra class, or I might need to study this a little bit more, do the work to close that knowledge gap so you're not dealing with the level of imposter syndrome. One of the things that I've been reflecting on lately is teaching at my highest level of mastery versus teaching on my highest level of success. And what I mean by that is I was having a conversation with a client who was dealing with the level of imposter syndrome because she had a program name that had the words millions in it. And she was like, am I operating out of integrity because I have the words millions inside of my program, but I have not yet made millions in my business? And I'm like, I do feel like it's a little bit out of integrity because you want to teach from your level of experience. Even though I understand the positive intention about let's make millions together, or this is a formula or a framework that can help you make millions, you will feel a level of imposter syndrome when you are teaching or supporting people from a place of inexperience. And so there may be some areas in your business where you need to develop more experience so you can eliminate that imposter syndrome. You know, one thing that I told my clients is that even though I've made millions of dollars in my business, I don't teach people how to make millions of dollars. I teach people how to make $100,000 in their business or $200,000 in their business. Because when it comes to making $1 million, that's something that I've only done 5 times. When it comes to making $100,000, that's something that I've done over 50 times. I'm going to teach from a level of mastery. I'm going to operate from a level of mastery so I feel no imposter syndrome whatsoever when it comes to showing up for myself and when it comes to showing my credentials and when it comes to supporting my clients. So if you find that you're dealing with imposter syndrome, you are either not seeing who you are clearly, or you need to take the time to actually gain more experience in what you're doing. The 7th thing that I wish somebody would have warned me when going into entrepreneurship is that people copying you is not flattery. It's just simply annoying. There is nothing more frustrating than when you put your hard-earned work and your blood, sweat, and tears into something and you see somebody else stealing it. And again, this is going to happen with the people who are closest to you. This is going to happen with your clients. This is going to happen with your colleagues. And fortunately, I don't deal with it as much, but it is something that can happen, whether it is intentional or it's something that is subconscious for a lot of people. I know for me personally, I don't follow a lot of experts who do the same things that I do, even if I respect their work, because I never want to subconsciously start transforming my message to match theirs or start creating offers that are exactly like theirs. Now, for the most part, there's nothing new under the sun. So you do need to be mindful of when you go around accusing people of stealing your stuff. But it does become frustrating when you know that somebody who had access to you and somebody who had access to your work decides that they want to go out and be the exact same expert that you are. So my advice to that is to approach that person with a level of curiosity instead of blame, right? Because it's very easy to just take things personally, right? And, I've given that advice over and over to do your best not to take things personally. That is one of my favorite agreements out of the 4 agreements, to not take things personally, because you will just start acting out of character. So if you find that anybody is copying you, and I've had to do this with even some of my clients before, just approaching it with a level of curiosity. For me, I've had to approach it by saying, I noticed when you came inside of the program, this was your focus, this was your messaging, this was your framework. But as we've worked together longer, I've recognized that your message started to mimic a lot of the Built to Impact frameworks. So it is really important to address it amicably the first time around. And typically people will receive it well, and they might not receive it well the first time around. It might, take them a minute, because they're human, to admit like, okay, my messaging is starting to shift a little bit, or they may deny it, whatever it is. But at least you know that you have addressed it. Now, I remember, I think this was probably, what year was this? 2015 or 2016. That somebody copied me, and I took a screenshot of her website. I took a screenshot of my website. I highlighted certain things on my website. I highlighted certain things on her website, and I emailed her and I was like, hey, like, you copied me on a lot of these things. And she was trying to clap back to me. And she's like, I don't even remember exactly what she said, because it was so long ago at this point. But she basically was saying, I will sue you for a libel, or whatever the word is, if you go around telling people that I copied you. And it's like, girl, I didn't even call you out publicly. Like, I generously sent you an email before I went the legal route. And so it was just very interesting. And I remember once she said that, then I posted about it on my social media. And then a lot of people went to her and were like, why are you copying Maya? Why are you copying Maya? And to be honest, it was one of my biggest regrets in business, because no matter how played I feel by somebody, I never want to be the type of person that bullies or embarrasses Black women. And so I wish I would have just made a different decision and just taken it straight to a lawyer versus making it a public matter. Because one thing that I have learned is that when 2 people are arguing, you can't tell which one is the fool. And so it's really important to just figure out what is the level of character that I want to have. And every once in a while, I think, what would Oprah do? What would a Black female billionaire do? She's not even going to be bothered by this stuff. And what I've also realized with copycats is that they will never be able to surpass you, because their move is predicated on how you move. So they're always going to be 3 steps behind. So imitation is not flattery. It's annoying, but you get to have control over the situation by either addressing it and then moving forward, or if it's something that's serious, if it's something that's costing you money, make sure that you address it with a legal team. The 8th thing that the gurus have not warned you about, and this is a little bit about the imposter syndrome, is recognizing that even when you give your best, sometimes your best will not be good enough. Even when you give your best, there may still be gaps in your business. You will deal with this at every single level of your business. We deal with it now at Built to Impact, and we recognize this more so when it comes to launches, right? You can map out the perfect strategy. You can map out all of your goals. Let me know if you have ever set a goal and you missed it and you're like, but I did everything right. If you have ever set a goal and you didn't hit that goal and you felt like you did everything right, you have to understand that some things just aren't going to go your way and that you need to actually take failure as data of how to improve. So even when I give my absolute best, I show up on the webinar with great energy, I write and send out all of the emails, I do all of the lives, I create all of the content to fill up a webinar and convert and meet my goals for a launch, sometimes my best simply is not good enough. And you will find yourself in situations where your best may not be good enough. And that doesn't mean that you did anything wrong. It just means you have to figure out, what is the gap? How can I improve next time? The only way you can get better is by actually doing something and figuring out where you fell short and how you can improve. So it can be discouraging because sometimes we think that when it comes to entrepreneurship, trying really hard and working really hard is going to get us results. And that's why it's important to not just work hard, but it's important to work smart. You can work as hard as you possibly want, and sometimes the results simply take time. Even when you think about it with fitness, like I could go to the gym and be in there for 4 hours. That does not equate to me spending 30 minutes for 3 days a week inside of the gym and getting progress over time, because I'm learning more and more every single time I go in the gym. So you got to be able to put in your reps. If you think that you're going to knock it out the park because you did a lot of work in a short time and you're going to just get the results, you have to understand that entrepreneurship is not a sprint, but it's a marathon. And so it is a long game where you are going to have learning lessons along. All right, so the second to last thing that the gurus did not warn you about is that there is so much advice and shiny object syndrome online that you will be confused at times of who to listen to. And you have to understand that when you are listening to marketers and people who have mastered sales and mastered positioning, everybody can make an argument for why they are right. There will be people that will say you should do carousels. There are people that will say you should do reels. There will be people that will say you should not do organic at all and you should do strictly ads. There will be people that will say I don't even do social media. I just run ads and I send out emails. There's a lot of advice online about how you should run your business, and you need to get really clear and operate with a level of discernment on who you want to listen to. There's a lot of confusion with new entrepreneurs because they're so desperate to get advice that they start listening to everybody. And when you're operating in this level of desperation, you also start to then blame people when things aren't working for you. You are responsible for your own work. You are responsible for who you decide to listen to. When you are listening to all of this advice and when you are getting distracted by all of this shiny object syndrome, that leaves you more susceptible to getting scammed. And you hear about being scammed and stuff in the online space. It's not something that I talk about or complain about because I think very highly of the coaching space, to be honest. But I find that even though there are people who are operating with ill intent, that the people who they are fooling were operating in desperation. And so it was easy to scam those people because those people were not doing their due diligence. Those people were so desperate and hungry to get a result. Those people did not do any level of research to see who they've worked with, what type of results that, that coach or that expert has been able to get. So when you see all of these people claiming to have results for their clients, claiming to have results for themselves, it's not that I would advise for you to operate with skepticism, but I will advise you to operate with wisdom. Whose voice do I trust? Let me follow them. Let me listen to them long enough to see that they can put their money where their mouth is. The same way you don't need to be engaged to somebody on the first date, on the second date, on the third date. You need to take your time studying these experts that you are listening to. One of my favorite things is when I have conversations with my clients or people that come to my workshops, and I'll say, how did you hear about you? When did you first come across me? And people will say, I actually started following you years ago, and you have been consistent for these past 3 years. You have been consistent for these past 4 years, past 5 years. People are watching you. And so you want to make sure that you're consistent as well when you're building your brand. And I'm not saying that you need to watch or study a coach for years before you make an investment. I'm saying you need to pay attention to the consistency of information and pay attention to the consistency of character before you just jump in and make an investment out of desperation and because you're getting distracted. And last but not least, baby, let me tell you what I was not prepared for. These business finances, like the accounting and the IRS. I remember the first time that I owed the IRS money. I had no idea how taxes worked because I had never worked in corporate. And when I did work a few jobs, in high school, I was still a dependent. So my parents were getting paid off of me. I was not getting any money back from the IRS. And so my first experience with the IRS was me owing them $2,000. And I think at the time I was maybe making $58,000 a year as a freelancer. When I tell you I did not pay that $2,000 after a few years, and then the bill just kept accumulating and accumulating because I was getting those late fees. And I finally had to call them and get myself on a payment plan because I'm like, who has $2,000 in their bank account? I surely don't, not this 24-year-old. So let me tell you, you want to make sure that you are adequately preparing for your taxes, that you are getting support from an accountant, somebody who is experienced with working with entrepreneurs. And don't go get these people who are doing your taxes because they get a cut and all of that. None of that backdoor stuff. It just ain't that serious. And have no fear, if you do find yourself in a position where you owe the IRS, that just means that you made a profit in your business. And I could tell you firsthand that you can set up a payment plan with the IRS. Finally, by the grace of God, I think within the last few years, I don't owe those people money anymore. Okay. I finally have made enough money where I can pay my bills and I am not looking behind my back in Target or at Whole Foods wondering if they go come snatch me up. But if you do find yourself in a bind when it comes to your taxes, reach out, get support, call the IRS directly. And to be honest, many of us aren't even making that much money where they're really worried about us. They're just going to keep sending you letters. And as long as you are making your payments, you are going to be good. Okay. So just make sure that your accounting is in order, especially when you start making more than like $1,000 to $2,000 a month in your business. So those are the 10 things that I wanted to warn you about when it comes to entrepreneurship, transitioning into entrepreneurship, and a lot of the things I wish I would have known so I didn't make so many mistakes. So I hope that this was helpful. If this was helpful to you and you're new starting entrepreneurship, you're new starting to build your brand, I actually have a free resource for you. It is my Build Your Brand checklist that I want you to take a look at and see if you can get it completed within the next 30 to 60 days. You can download it right now for free at builttoimpact.com/BYOB. And let me know in the comments which tip was most helpful for you and how many things on the checklist you have been able to cross off. All right, until next time, continue working hard so you can live soft.